Today we are going to learn how to wet felt. We are going to create bookmarks inspired by a location that we find meaningful and have fond memories of. Felt has been used for thousands of years. The earliest recordings of felt can date back as far as the 3rd and 4th centuries BC. It was created and used in nomadic tribes across Europe and Asia. Felt was created from animal fur and turned into functional objects like yurts, rugs, mattresses. It was also turned into garments like coats, hats, and footwear. Felt is still used today for both functional and non-functional purposes. Artist Janice Arnold created a yurt that was displayed at the Smithsonian Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum in New York City in 2009. Artist Jory Johnson creates beautiful wearable garments. They both also create felt hangings. I have also made some felt hangings. Both of these hangings were inspired by photographs that my aunt took on a trip to Ireland a few years ago. Now to get started on the bookmarks that we are going to make today. These are the supplies that you're going to need to start wet felting. We need extra towels to soak up extra water, a surface to provide agitation. This is a rubbery shelf liner. You can also use bamboo mats or bubble wrap. You'll need a rolling bar. You can use a pool noodle. I use a big piece of metal that I found in my garage. This is synthetic netting. You'll need a bowl for excess water and a plastic bag, dish soap, a spray bottle, and cooling racks for when you're finished to dry your piece on. And most importantly, you need wool roving, which is this ropey form that can be found in pretty much every color. And we're going to have photographs for inspiration. These are photos that I took on a trip to Lake Nakamixon with my dad last year. You'll want to have your a towel laid out on the bottom with your agitation mat on top of that. You'll want to take a piece of the wool roving that you want as your background color and separate it into 3 to 4 manageable strips like this. You'll then want to take one of these tufts and holding it at the end in one hand and about 4 inches from the end in your other hand, you can break it off into manageable tufts. You want to do about 4 inches because sheep's wool is sheared once it grows about 4 inches. If you do it too close, you're trying to break the wool and it's not really going to work too well. So you just hold it like that. We're going to lay out the tufts in a column like this so that we can start our bookmark. That's about as long as I want it. And now you're going to lay another color or the same color if you want at a 90-degree angle. We're going to make a 3-layered piece of felt and then the 4th layer is going to be the details. So now I'm going to do a second color. At 90 degrees. So I finished laying down my 3rd layer. I chose black as my 3rd layer since that's what the photographs, the water looks pretty black. Now I'm going to add some details with the lily pads and the flowers. And the great thing about felting is you can do really detailed pieces or you can also make more abstract pieces. If you remember the photographs that I showed you of the feltings that I did, those were more abstract takes of the photographs that they were inspired from. And you can separate the felt into thinner pieces as well. I was using bigger pieces for the backgrounds, but now I can use thinner pieces for the foreground and the details. And you can do really great things with it. You can like spin it around your finger and make it into little circles and it'll stay. You can make it very wispy if you want. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with what I've got for the forms that I want for the lily pads. Now I'm going to get to work on the flower. And when I'm doing details, I like to get multiple pieces sometimes ready so that I don't have to stop what I'm doing to pull some pieces out. And you can manipulate the roving into shapes as well. You can just twist it and sort of squish it in on itself. Okay, and now when you're happy with what you've got laid down, we can start felting. I like to get all my roving out of the way because I do not want it to get wet. So if it gets wet, it gets felted. Okay, so you're going to take this synthetic netting, and it has to be synthetic, otherwise if it is a natural material, the wool will actually start felting to it. So it needs to be synthetic. So you're just gonna lay that down on top, and you can use a single sheet. I just have a big sheet, so I have it folded up, and you can keep it folded. And lay it on top so that your design basically stays in place. Now we're going to add about 2 drops of your dish soap into your spray bottle. You're also going to get hot water and put it in the spray bottle. Not hot enough to scald yourself, but just hot enough that you can stand. Now we have our soapy water, our hot soapy water in our spray bottle, and you're going to start spraying directly onto the netting and your felt. Okay, now take your plastic bag and you're going to ball it up. Push up your sleeves if they're long, and you're going to start working the water through your felt. And you're going to want to go in circles. Don't do long strokes because then you will stretch out your felt and you can damage your design that way. Just do little circles all over to try and help get the water into all of the roving. Please also be mindful of the amount of water that you're using at this point. You don't want to use too much water that's going to drip down onto the floor. It can become a slipping hazard. So just be aware of your work area and anyone that's around you, and have extra towels around in case you do need to clean up any water that you've spilled on the floor. You'll know that your roving is plenty wet once it's not fluffy anymore. It should be fairly flat, and at that point you can start adding more pressure with your plastic bag and just rub a little bit more for about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, now you can remove your netting and start taking a look at your work and see if it's felting. And you can see that it's all nice and squished down. What you want to do is flip this over and do the same thing on the other side. After about 2 to 3 minutes of doing the back, you can remove the netting, and it should come away pretty easily. You can just put that aside, and now we can move on to the next step of our felting. And we're going to add a little bit more water again, and we are going to use our rolling bar now. So you're going to place the rolling bar on the netting, or not the netting, your agitation mat, and you're going to roll it over your felt. And now you're just going to roll back and forth pretty quickly for about 50 times. Okay, and now we're going to open it up. And as you felt, it's going to shrink in the way that you just rolled it, so you need to rotate your work so that you evenly shrink the entire piece. Okay, and now that you've done the entire top, you need to flip it over and do it again in all 4 directions. You can continue to manipulate the felt through the process. I just use my nail and move it around. And if you notice that the fibers aren't all totally down, you can do a pinch test. And these are pretty good. They're lifting up all of it, but I do notice that some of these in the flower aren't totally felted down. They're like coming up if I pull on them. You can see this yellow is just coming up. You can just add some more water. I also noticed on the back. I don't know, it looks weird. I'm just gonna add some more water and just roll some more. And that's basically the process. You just wet and agitate the roving, and you can manipulate as much as you like. Oh, now that's looking good now. Now these really look like they're down. I'm just going to continue the process so that all the sides were evenly felted. I feel like this is pretty felted. All the fibers are sticking down. When I pick it up, the entire piece comes up, not just like little pieces. So we're going to take this to the sink and we're going to rinse it out under cold water to get any of the excess soap out of it. Now we can just rinse out any soap that might be remaining in the felt, just under cold water. You can get totally wet and squeeze it. And just squeeze out as much of the water as you can. It's not going to hurt your piece to squeeze it. And now you can just leave your piece on the cooling racks. These are just cookie sheets. They're good because they let air underneath the piece as well, and it helps it dry. It will take a little while for this to dry, so we'll be leaving them overnight, and then tomorrow we can see how they look. Our bookmarks have had time to dry. I actually think I'm going to trim mine. It's a little bit wider than I would have liked. You can definitely leave them as wide as you want. It's a bookmark that can be whatever size you want, and if you like the natural look of the edges, which generally I do prefer, you can keep them, but I think I'm going to make it a little bit thinner for my book. So you can just cut it with scissors, it's no big deal. And I think I'm going to keep the natural ends. I like that. And now we have a bookmark that is memorable and meaningful to you and is functional. Will help you keep your place in your book.